Welcome, everyone, to Systems Lab Live. We are back. This is the March 4th edition of Systems Lab Live. In fact, this is the season opener of the brand new podcast season, Built from Scratch. And I'm excited to be here with you all today. We have so much to talk about. We are streaming live from LinkedIn Live, YouTube, and Instagram. I want you all to put inside of the chat where you're from. And also, what are you working on this month? Okay, what are you working on this month? Is it something new? Is it something that you have been working on for the past couple of months? What's going on? What are you working on? Put that in the comments. I want to see you all in the comments. Happy March, by the way. Happy March, everyone. We are here. We are in the third month of Q1. And what a fantastic time it is. And so, talk to me, good people. Talk to me, good people. How is everyone doing? For those of you that did not know, that on February 28th, which was last week, I've launched the brand new season of Conversations with Ask Ash Built from Scratch season. Now, as you know, we have been talking about for the past few weeks about building from scratch. Okay. Building from scratch. And in fact, I think this session is it's really session 4 because I skipped a week because it's supposed to be last week, but it's this week. But it's all good. It's all good. Just coming back from a phenomenal time at Millions Conference 2024 in Atlanta. Such a wonderful time in the Lord, wonderful time in all things understanding and whatnot when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to everything. So it was just all of it was mind blowing. So one day we'll have a good old nice little debrief on that. But wanting to take time really to talk about, what this particular season is all about. So in the comments, I do want you all to answer this question. What is your built from scratch moment? What's your built from scratch moment? I also will put in the comments as well. We got Conversations with Ask Ash. I will put the link to the live stream, to the episode inside the comments as well. So the episode 1, which is the explainer episode, is in the link in the bio. Link in bio. Okay. And I just want to, when I type that on the Insta, what I'm looking to do is pin the comment. So what are we doing tonight? Tonight we are breaking down episode 1. What is your built from scratch moment? Why did I utilize that particular title? I wanted to call it the explainer episode, which it pretty much is, but I wanted to land with what is your built from scratch moment, because everyone, I believe, has had their built from scratch moment. In episode 1 of this season, I'm taking a really introspective look at what I've been seeing out in the marketplace, out in the industry, out in this thing called work, right? And so when we talk about building from scratch, there are a few different types of definitions that I want to pull forth. I'm gonna pull up my my Coda doc. Shout out to Coda, which is my newest of my favorite of things to build from. And I want to get some definitions out. I'm going to open up my pod script, which I have here. And in this episode, I talk about several things. I talk about explaining, what the format of the season is. And then I talk about also the definition of it. And I'm just going to put the definition in there so, that you all have something to look at and to preview. So we have the definition of built from scratch is right here. The definition is right here. And I'm seeing if I can put this right here. Yeah, it may not show on the link. Oh, it's kind of separated it out. Oops. Let me delete this. We will delete this comment here. But I got it. I know what you do. We're going to put two definitions at once. Built from scratch. Definition number 1. We have this right here. Definition 2. Boom. Okay, cool. So, with that said, what we're looking at when we talk about building from scratch, it's really doing something uh, without making use of anything that's been done before. Think of it as something that is unprecedented. Think about that as unprecedented. So I want you all to think in the comments. Tell me a little bit about things that you either are currently building from scratch or that you are embarking upon right now in this moment. And it also says too, the definition says to create and to create something from scratch is to make anything without ingredients and materials that are without making to create something from scratch is to make it without any ingredients or materials prepared ahead of time. And so in this episode, I reference the Biscuit Lady. In fact, there is a clip on my Instagram page where I talk about the Biscuit Lady, the inspiration behind this whole thing about building from scratch in terms of the analogy. So here's what here's where the story time that I want to tell you. So I was driving back from North Carolina with my mother, and we were visiting family, and we were going to wanting to stop for a little breakfast. So one of our favorite spots to go to is when we go to North Carolina is to go to Bojangles. How many Bojangles lovers do we have out in the family? What's going on, brother Jared? So lovely to see you. Happy belated birthday, by the way. And so when we talk about Bojangles, I like a good Bojangles because, they have great biscuits and great chicken, right? And so one thing I wanted to do was like, okay, there's another breakfast spot, and we kept seeing Biscuitville. So we're like, okay, let's stop at Biscuitville and see, what's happening, what's going on, Rachel. And so when we stopped by Biscuitville, we stopped inside, and there's this lady in there that just had flour, and she was in a clear glass thing in the back of the like near the register, but like off to the side. And she just had her mixing bowl, and she was just going at it with the flour. And I thought to myself, man, she went in there, she took something that had little to no, like nothing, put it in the oven, and then bam, it would come out, and the people would make the biscuits. So I was like, man, I mean, when we think about our favorite meal, when we think about, our favorite apple pie, or what is your, yeah, put it in the comments, what is your favorite meal that you have that's literally from scratch? And so what I love about this aspect of building from scratch is that you can literally be so creative and so inventive. So I always remember my grandmother when she would go and wanting to make something. Literally, maybe, for whatever reason, we didn't go out to the store or something like that. What she would do, she would go and search for ingredients, and she would literally make the most delicious meals ever. So I think about that analogy of building from scratch, and I'm like, where are these built from scratch moments? Have they shown up in my own life? Right. And so inside of the podcast, I talk about, especially with episode 1 that you can find for my Instagram fam. The link is in the bio to listen to that first episode. And then also too, if you're on YouTube and on LinkedIn Live, I also have a link um, to um, to conversations with Ask Ask, so you can go and look at that as well. But I start to think about life. I start to think about embarking upon the journey itself, where you may be faced for things that don't have a manual, that don't have any type of script or instructions that you can lean on. And so I began to think through and look at patterns in my own life where I was thrusted into situations where I was like, okay, I'm having a built from scratch moment. I'm having a built from scratch moment in my own career, right? I'm being thrusted into a role that has been built. And so what do you do? And this is not necessarily on the Jill, go look at your job description. Job descriptions, they are what they are, right? They kind of they help to craft and to mold, but in some senses there are roles and opportunities. I know many of you all probably have been in a situation where it's kind of like, this is new, we haven't had this before. Or some people, it may be familiar to other organizations and entities and people, but maybe for another type of organization, they've never built out the team. That's a built from scratch moment, right? So I hope that you're following me with that as well, about this concept of building from scratch. Inside of my notes that I want to share with you about building from scratch is that scratch is about beginnings. It's about beginnings. And so, how many of you all are in a place and space of beginnings? Beginnings. I would love to hear from you all in the chat about your beginnings. Again, that's what the premise of that episode. What is your built from scratch moment? Yeah. And so, other opportunities where I started to see building from scratch. So I'll take this as from a personal perspective, as a believer and a woman of faith. You when you are going through some of the circumstances of life, you'll be confronted with things, right? You'll be confronted with things. So scripture has said time and time again, listen, the Lord did not guarantee, he did not guarantee that you're just going to be going through life sailing. You know what I'm saying? That you're just going to go through life and just, it's all going to be easy. There's going to be circumstances where your faith may have to be rebuilt, reconstructed. It may have to have a new beginning. You see what I'm saying? And so inside of the podcast, I talk a bit about referencing Ezra and Nehemiah from a biblical perspective and what I was able to see there. And so what is cool about um, looking at that from the perspective of, leaders that were in the Bible that were charged with rebuilding structures and rebuilding walls after, so many years of, it was almost like, what was it? Let me look at this little note here. I'll be taking a lot of notes on this here topical studies. Let me go through this topical study right quick. Is this the one where it was? Let me go right here. So I get this note kind of right. There we go. So wait a minute. Go right here. Okay. Here we go. Oh no, that's not it either. Let me go right back here in just a minute. I just want to pull this up, y'all. Okay. So when we talk about the building from scratch moment, and when I was referencing from that biblical perspective, we're talking about 70 plus years of captivity and desolation that happened. Ezra was a scribe, he was a scholar, he was a reformer. And so what is powerful is that King Cyrus, this is how the Lord works, where he uses people in high levels of leadership, like King Cyrus, stirred by the Holy Spirit, to allow the exiles back into the territory, right? And so what happened is that there was a mission, and the mission was to go back and to rebuild. So it's super powerful that the Lord had moved in King Cyrus's heart to make this proclamation, have them to all come back after 70 years, and to come back to rebuild, right? They were coming back, and so one of the principal themes in Ezra and Nehemiah is God's work and the human work for rebuilding and restoring, right? And so this is what is the cool part about this building from scratch, is that you see throughout the threading of the story from Ezra and from Nehemiah is that the okay, here we go. Okay, boom, we got it. What we see here is that building from scratch takes vision, commitment, and faith. Vision, commitment, and faith. What I found fascinating in a study is that the temple foundation started in Ezra 3:8 and was finished in Ezra 6:15, right? So you got chapter 3 of Ezra and you got chapter 6 of Ezra. And exactly 21 years after the work had started, that's when the foundation of the temple was built. So we often might think that, building from scratch is something that is for you and for me. One of the things that is profound about that is when God gives you the vision, he'll equip you with the resources, right? Let's say that again one more time. So building from scratch takes vision, commitment, and faith. And so the timing of it and how it all goes about, it all depends on what structure is being built. That's it. It all depends on what structure is being built inside of your life. It could be very quick, right? God can do a new and quick thing in your life. So be encouraged by that. And what might take for you, you might be thinking, oh man, this is taking so long. But what was powerful about the work that God did with Ezra and Nehemiah is that there was vision there. There was commitment there. There was faith, right? And so I think that something that we all should be thinking about in our own takeaway is, what does that look like in our own lives when we are in our built from scratch moments? Where's our faith? How is it planted? How is it being built? What's that commitment looking like? What's around us? What's rooted at what's being rooted? What's planted? So I talk a little bit about that. And so I wanted to come with varying perspectives from this built from scratch. That personal perspective from me, and from the faith perspective, from a practical perspective about things going on in career and or business, right? And then we sort of start to go and lean into building from scratch from the PM perspective, right? And so what I'm seeing out here in the place and space of this thing called work is that we're seeing this concept of the project economy. Many organizations, what they're doing is they are moving towards project-based work. You're seeing that by 2027, there needs to be a bajillion amount of project managers that need to be hired. Okay. This is good news for people in my field, right? This is good news, right? We are in demand. We are in demand. And so, what does that mean? A project based economy. We're going to define that, right? A project based economy. So let me pull up the exact definition for you all so you kind of can know that. So, that just means that the business model, and what they're doing is they're centering their work on project oriented activities. By 2027, 88 million people around the world will be working in project management. Okay. 88 million. Okay. We're talking about the delivery of products and services through the lens and the vehicle of project management. So why is that super, super important? Okay. This is super important because what we want to do here, especially in this season, this built from scratch season, is really start honing in on what it takes. What does it take to build a program, project, and initiative from scratch? And that is really what the quest is for this season. And we're doing it in two different lenses, in two different ways. And I want to break that down. You're going to hear from me about 5 or so episodes, and there might be a couple more that I record. I know I have the majority of the season is finished and completed, but I have a sense that I need to script out a couple more to kind of carve out the season in terms of content. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be walking alongside a project manager that is getting their first mobile app digital project, and we're going to go through that person's lens of how they are building something for their agency and state from scratch. So how are we doing this? It's going to be quite lovely because we are going to be talking about scope, requirements, risk, budget. I'm going to walk you even through some of the principles from my 9-point PM framework that I have. And so when we start to go through the case study, I want you all to start visualizing, what were your strategies? What were your approaches when it comes to building these programs and projects from scratch? How did you do it? What was something that you created? Did you start with a project charter? Did you start with a kickoff meeting? Did you start with a discovery call? Did you start with writing out a scope and requirements document? What were some of the things that you all started to do when you started to work on some of these projects, programs, and initiatives? So I think that's what's really going to be a key aspect to this. I'll also be talking in just a few more minutes about how you can ask questions and kind of add your insights to each of these episodes. I think it's really going to be powerful, and it's going to be super, super cool for you to for you to engage in this way. Then there's the second half of the season where I'm going to be releasing several episodes of people I've interviewed that have built their lives, their particular businesses from scratch. You're going to hear from systems folks. You're going to hear from event planners. You're going to hear from a public speaking strategist. You're going to hear from people that are really have started off in unique circumstances, got into business, blew some stuff up, rebuild some stuff back up, that are quite unapologetic about the ways in which they did it. And it was not easy, folks. It was not easy, folks. So be excited about this, because this is not your particular season where you are just going to hear about tips and tricks and this is how you do this and this is how you do that. No, we are really looking forward to ensuring that you all have a holistic perspective of storytelling and being able to really understand, what does it mean to build from scratch. So it's exciting. Any questions that anyone has so far? Again, the podcast episode, the link is in the bio. Instagram fam, go to the link in my Instagram bio. What you can do is click the link and you will see podcast as the third one down. Once you see, you'll see about 4 links or 5 links. It'll be the last one. It'll be the third one, excuse me. And yeah, that is where you will find it. And if I show my screen really quickly, you all will be able to see it as well. So we'll look here. This is what this looks like here. So if you go to conversationswithaskash.com, you'll see a brand new podcast cover. Shout out to the Sitar Arts Center for their wonderful work on this. And yeah, so you'll see this in here. Of course, you can listen any of the podcast players, Apple, Spotify, etc. Like all these right here. If you feel so inclined, there is an opportunity where if you wanted to, I just stopped my screen sharing. If you wanted to go and do a buy me a tea or something like that, if you wanted to support the content, support what's going on, feel free to go to buy me a coffee. That's right on this page here. You can go and you can do that. So I'm telling you, it's just super exciting. 59 episodes. Wednesday will be 60 episodes. right? I typically have season formats. Season formats is my particular bread and butter. What I like to do, I like for to be able to create in season formats so that there is context to what is being talked about. Right. Last season was very fire. There's 10 episodes on communication with such a wealth of knowledge from acing communication to developing a communications plan to client communication to how do we communicate from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective. So much great information for you to dive into content wise if you are looking to revamp your season. And so season 7, this built from scratch is really we're going to take our time with this because this is really the theme that we are on right now. This is the theme that surrounds that. And I'm just, like I said, I'm thrilled to be taking this time. Next week, we'll talk about the podcast, the episode 2, where we'll talk about project foundations. I'll share also what I'm seeing that is out in the news right now in terms of project foundations too. So we're going to really be diving into this from some unique perspectives, where we're going to look at what's in the news, talk about the podcast, and it's just going to be phenomenal. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I wanted to make sure I want to cover a couple more things, and I do want to talk about going back to this aspect of the project economy and the shift towards this remote and hybrid work on project management. What it's doing is it's having us to think very differently and very strategically about the ways in which we are getting our work done. Okay. We're thinking very strategically about the ways in which we're getting your work done. So, what does that mean, Ashley? So, what that means is that since March 2020, the way in which that we have done work, the way in which that we have related to one another, the way in which we collaborate is very, very, very different than what we did when we were inside of the office. The ability to go to conference rooms, the ability to pick up the phone and to call or to visit somebody at the desk, that got shaken up, and we have to approach work in a different way. Now, granted, many people are back in the office, but then there's also various sectors that are not returning back to work or have allowed the flexibilities of hybrid and remote work. So, what do you do when you have team members that are in other countries, other time zones? And how does that have an impact on the project management work? Because after all, one of the things that I always remembered about the managing a project back when I was managing some projects on MS Project, shout out to MS Project, it was super easy to be able to go and to, send things to the contractor, to go into collaborating conference rooms with people, to be able to go and to, troubleshoot things, right? And yes, it doesn't mean that I could not do it in this present day, but there was definitely a familiarity going from floor to floor, being able to manage the projects. What else was going on during that time? We had a lot of meetings. We were on the phone a lot, conference calls and whatnot, video conferencing, and those type and that ability as well. So uh, there are plenty of companies and organizations that were doing the hybrid work, but I just believe that now more than ever, um, we've all had to think differently. So one thing that we also had to think differently as well, which is, where's our information? How is it in terms of project teams and really team members that are located all across the world? How do we communicate? Because somebody that is in Bangkok or in LA have vastly different time zones in terms of communication. So let's think about that. I'd love to know in the comments as well, when it comes to the work that you all are doing, are you hybrid? Are you remote? What has been your experience? I'd love to know what's been your experience. What has been your particular experience when it comes to uh, how you're working pre-pandemic versus how you're working right now? So I talk about that in the episode as well. There's an impact. How are we managing our projects? What are the tools? What are the processes? How do we communicate with one another? All of that. Have to think more creatively. What worked before may not work right now. So how do we go about getting that understanding? So now I want to talk to you about this particular concept before we jump into the Miro board and talk to you a bit about the heart behind that and how I would love for you all to utilize that. The next gen digital PM is a concept where the way in which that we are doing work requires more of three elements: leadership, strategy, and execution. So, what does all of that mean in the context of building from scratch? Well, what we're seeing in this project economy world, what we're seeing is new inventions. Then we're seeing organizations create new processes, new products and services, and so now we are entering into a phase where the PM was primarily the person that was, I'm just here to get it done. We're here to go from A to B to C to D into the finish line. But now what we're seeing is because we're so spread out, we're in various different places and locations. Now we start talking about work as a whole, work management. You probably have heard that terminology. When we talk about work management, we're talking about overarching processes within an organization. And so what a project manager typically would do is manage these projects. Now project managers are now being asked to manage all different types of processes and projects that go throughout the entire organization. So I think it's really important that we understand that work management, we're looking at from the perspective of what are the workflows and processes that really help streamline efficiency and really help to drive the organization to operational efficiency. Project management is really, we're looking at the one-to-one projects, right? Bam, wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Get it done. So we're also looking at the next gen project manager in terms of the leadership piece, because we have companies and organizations that are doing new things. So now the scopes are getting bigger, the budgets are bigger, the risk is high. And so it's not just wham bam thank you ma'am. Now it is our strategy, our approach, our leadership. How are we developing project culture? How are we developing project culture? Who in the chat would want to, start to talk through how you are developing project culture in the chat? I'd love to know what that's looking like. So put that in the comments if you're watching that in the replay, or definitely send me a DM, LinkedIn or Instagram on what you're kind of thinking and feeling and seeing with all of this. Okay. So uh, that is something that we should think about, the leadership perspective. Who are you as a leader? I always rapidly encourage people to do a few things. Number one, get to know yourself through, self-evaluation, self-assessment. And then number two, definitely go and get your disc assessment, strength finders assessment, really lock in and dive into your natural habits and your natural ways of leading and how you think. How do you think? What makes you tick as a leader? I think that is just supremely important in these days. And it's important for your team member as well. It delves right into the communication piece. It delves right into the way that you approach work. When we talk about strategy, we're talking about defining project strategy, because one project is different from another project. Sometimes you can't necessarily take the same ingredients and then apply them to a new situation. If that were the case, we probably wouldn't have upwards to 88 million people within these next 3 years looking to get into project management, if that was the case. So friends, as we take a beat, as you start thinking through what we're doing, talk to me in the comments. What are you all thinking and feeling so far? Put that in the comments. Excellent, excellent. What's going on, Trent? What's going on, Ivana? So good to see you all here. All right. leadership, strategy, and then execution. The execution is something that will never go away for the PMs. That's something where you are getting the work done. But I focus a lot on how you're getting the work done, right? How do you get the work done? We talk about task management and approach, execution, execution. How are we feeling out there, folks? We're feeling good. We're feeling good. As you know, the podcast has dropped. Conversations with askash.com. Please, 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 when you get a chance, definitely tap in. So I'm going to show you all the Miro board. So this is something that is oh so exciting. I started this Miro board probably several months ago, sometime maybe in the middle of 2023, I think it was. And the whole premise behind this particular Miro board was to showcase my journey into developing and crafting this Miro board. And so what Miro is a whiteboarding and mapping tool designed for teams to collaborate more easily, in a way for them to get work done, plan out projects, do retrospectives, team meetings, and is a way to bring people together to gain feedback, in a way in which you can do that through designing a Miro board. So when you come to Miro, what you're going to see right here, you're going to see get to know me. So you may have to, there's a couple little quirky things here about it, but I'm gonna go out and I'm going to show you all the roadmap. So right here, you can start here, kind of get to know me, who I am, what I do, right? I have some fun facts here. I don't know how much the Instagram fam can see, but hope you all can see something. But yeah, right here, you can look into the get to know me. And as you look, you can see all the fun facts about me. And that kind of gives you a sense of who I am. If you slide down right here, you'll kind of look at the current landscape of the podcast. The reason why I wanted to put this up here is I wanted to really look at what I was focusing on and kind of get a sense of where I wanted to go. So I was focusing on systems, processes, work efficiency, and this is my current landscape. I'm looking to focus on the structure of the podcast, its format, and consistency in producing episodes. So this is kind of like some goal setting here that I was doing. Then there was this aspect of the future forecast. So how am I future forecasting the podcast? So what does that look like exactly? So what that looks like is, making sure that the podcast has alignment with Systems Lab Live, which is this live stream, managing projects, leading teams, and creating processes. A desire of mine is to working towards more conversational, providing frameworks and insights on productivity trends, managing projects, and leading teams, which is something that you'll find inside of the podcast. So I think I'm doing that. I think there is a sense of me, me doing that. So this season, you'll also hear a case study that I do at the beginning of each episode, which is super exciting. It's something that I am looking forward to, for you all to kind of talk through and give your feedback. It's the Slack report. And so as I am going through that, I'm definitely asking for y'all's opinion on some things. Want you all to provide your particular insights. For right now, it's audio only. That's kind of where we have landed on that. And this is also a link to the YouTube channel that you'll see here. So, as you go in, you know, add your comments. I was in a podcasting like mastermind thing through the podcast academy, and they provided some comments about my podcast. And so I placed them here. And you all, as you go throughout the podcast, I want you all to kind of add some of the comments on, the structure and the format. So I have structure, I have the tone. What is my tone? There's a question I have here, and it says, tone does not have, so this is one comment about my podcast. Tone does not have ebbs and flows, very one level. Um could all more could be all more dynamism to the presentation. So they kind of want a little bit more, like, I guess, more swag and more flair to it, right? Episode feels like a presentation to many listeners, and that's probably true in some ways. And then the episode would benefit for some structure. So I think I attempted to do that. And then there's a question of how can you present it to make it feel like an intimate experience for just one person. So I think this is probably where I will definitely need your like how does it feel? How does the structure and the tone feel to you all? I'm interested in your thoughts. Then there's any comments on audio or a call to action or other thoughts, and also a name change, possibly if you have one. Some suggestions. Take the sticky, bring the sticky down, and then start typing in your thoughts. Hey, this is what I think. And boom, it's right there. So it's super, super easy for you to be able to engage within this tool. If you have some Q&A just on my overall questions about my podcast process, you can grab a sticky here, add the Q&A, and then I will answer it. Here is the podcast progress notes. So as I think about even maybe doing a rebrand of sorts, I am thinking through how I want to structure some of these things out. So, I'm looking at my target audience, my podcast vision and content, the structure, workflow, marketing plan. Oh, already have something on the marketing plan. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right here. So when we talk about dropping questions, I want to bring you all here too. I wanted to also be pretty super transparent and honest about how did I go about building out this season? How did I go about doing that? So I kind of tell you about the theme of it. What are the episode lengths? 5 episodes, 5 to 7 interviews. And then I talk to you all about the ops behind it all. Talk to you about Coda, ClickUp, Acuity, Airtable, Active Campaign. We'll have opportunity to talk about each tool when we do the breakdown of each episode every week. So we'll talk about Coda next week, or ClickUp, Active Campaign, what I'm using, why I'm using it, and what I'm switching out. When you get to the episode, well, you can also ask general questions about the overall season as well. You can definitely do that. Um, that's super easy to do. And then each episode, grab a sticky, and ask your question. Oh, why can't I? Uh-oh. Let me see something. Okay. Let me make sure that this is. For some reason, let me see if I can fix this. Send to back. Okay. This is weird. Okay, send to back. Okay. Yeah, grab a sticky, folks, and ask questions on episode 1. And as we move through the season, we'll want to do that. I want to make sure too. Send to back. I want to make sure that this is right. Okay, cool. I think we are almost good to go. And again, I'll just do this here and figure this out as I'm here. What's going on? But this is what I want y'all to do. It's the link to the Miro board is in the show notes of the episode. Is in the show notes of the episode. So I would love for you all to go in and to look at the Miro board and to go and add your comments and thoughts. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. Super, super appreciate you, Shakira and Essential Being 23, for popping into the live stream. So thank you so much, you all. That's what we got going on for episode 1, the explainer episode, y'all. And so go ahead and head over to the episode. Go and click on the feedback form because it's right here. Let me go and share this tab. When you go to here, when you go into the episode on the website, go all the way down and say leave episode feedback. It says, I want your input. Click here. I'm going to click out of this really quickly. And then when you click, I want your feedback, you're going to go straight again to the Miro board and you are going to leave your comments on the Miro board. And we're going to check them out from week to week. So I'm very excited about that. I want you to grab a sticky and ask a question and I will answer it. And I'll probably even answer it live. How about that? So thank you all so much for joining me for this brand new season. We will be back next week. We're going to go through episode 1. We're going to go over any questions on the Miro board. We're going to just go and continue to build upon this. This is fantastic, including something that's exciting as well. Is the return, and we'll talk about that next week. I have a return of a service, and it has some built from scratch components of it. I'm going to let my email list know about it first on Wednesday. So if you're not a part of the email list, you'll go inside of the show notes here and sign up for the emails, because I think that's important for you to stay engaged that way as well. My email list is going to hear all about what's next, how they can work with me as well. So that's what we doing up in here, friends. That's what we doing. And I'm just so super excited that you all have joined me here tonight. Yeah, man, you are all the best, the best, the best. So share this live stream, support the pod. And that's all that I got here from today. Peace out, y'all. We out. Thank you all so much.